Welcome back to Not So Grand Garage. I was not planning on coming back out to the shop tonight, but getting this thing on the road again has got me motivated, I should say. So we're closing in on midnight, and yeah, we got work to do. So tonight, before I go in, I'm going to try to get our big brake conversion done on the front end and get these new CV axles put in. So yeah, we got a lot of work to do. So let's get started. We're going to start on the driver's side because this side is our problem child right now, as we've got a blown out boot on the CV shaft anyways. So we'll start over here. Get this tire and wheel off and get our 8-lug adapters off. Yes, I do run a 6 to 8 lug adapter on the front of this truck. It sucks, I don't like it, but there's no other good way to get 8 lug on the front of this, as the rear is the semi-float 14 bolt out of a Hummer H2. It is 8 lug, so I did not want to run mismatched lug pattern wheels, so it is what it is. But I haven't had any trouble out of them. I've had it on the road for a year or so with these wheels and tires on it. But yeah, so we're gonna pull this apart. Again, the truck's been parked for 2.5 years or so now. But yeah, we're gonna get this apart and see what we got to work with. Well, tire and wheel is off, and this was a pain. These spacers, at the time when I put this truck together, the only adapters that I could find were 2-piece. And the last time I went through the front end on this thing, put control arms and tie rod ends and the works on it, put new hubs on it as well, and when I went back together with it, I Loctited these adapter bolts in place. So had to heat up the whole adapter to get these to break loose, but got them out. Now I'm going to smack this with a mallet and get this top or this front piece off. Then I can take the rear adapter off, and then we should be able to take the caliper and caliper mount and rotor off. We'll do a little comparison with our monster brakes down there. So I got the 2-piece adapter off. Next up, I'm going to go on and get this axle nut out. I'm going to try to drop that CV shaft without pulling anything else apart. I think I can, because the suspension's all the way drooped out. I think if I can get this broke loose up here, I can get it to come loose down and slide out from the inside. I want to try that. I've never done it before, so we'll see if it works. Then we're just going to unhook the brake line here, unhook it here. I'm going to be replacing these soft lines while I'm at it. And the caliper and mount can come off, then the rotor can come off. And everything, from my understanding, is pretty well a direct fit. The rotor will slip right over, and then the caliper will fit in the same location, stock bolts, but we need an 1/8 spacer to go between the caliper and the knuckle. But we'll get to that in a minute. 36mm right there, and I don't have a breaker bar handy, so I'm gonna go on and break my 1/2" ratchet. But how I like to do these is take a nice big screwdriver, and I'll probably use this one, but slip it through the cooling fins on the rotor, and the rotor can come up and lock up against the caliper mount. Then we can loosen this nut up. Here she comes. There we go. Okay. So, before I pull the brakes apart, because I don't really want to do this jam a screwdriver in on the brand new rotors and calipers when I go to retorque this nut, I'm going to go on and try to get the axle shaft out of the way, get it swapped out first, and get that done. Then we'll go on with the brakes. Let reach. Oh yeah. One. 3. 4. 5. And 6. The next question is, will it clear everything? And the answer looks like a no. Oh, wait. Oh. Beautiful. Here's our replacement for this side. Now, oddly, when I took it out of the box, this cap had been knocked off of it. So I got everything worked back down in there, got the cap knocked back on, which once it's in place, it can't go anywhere. But yeah, go on and try to work this in place the same way that one came out. And get these flange bolts in and tight. Get this nut torqued. Then we'll get our brakes torn down. I'm gonna go on and use a little anti-seize on our splined end here. This just makes everything come apart a lot easier the next time we got to replace hubs or something along those lines. Okay. So with the boot intact, I'm having trouble with the shock, hitting the shock body. So I'm going to pull this lower shock bolt and just scooch it out of the way a little bit, and hopefully that'll give us enough room. Go. Up. There we go. Now, throw a little blue thread locker on these bolts, and we'll shoot them back in with the impact. I mean, torque wrench. Yeah, precisely. That's what I said. Next up is to retorque this nut. I'm gonna have to look the specs up because I don't remember them. I know it's up there pretty good. So we'll lock this caliper and rotor back up, torque this down to spec, and yeah, it's important you torque this nut to spec because it sets the load on your hub assembly. So if you're killing hub assemblies consistently and you haven't been torquing this nut down, you've just been gunning it down tight or what have you, try doing it to torque or doing it to the actual spec and see if you get any more longer, or see if you get a longer lifespan out of your bearings. But anyways, I'm gonna look that up real quick and we'll go from there. So our axle nut torque spec is 177 foot-pounds. So I've got the new nut on here that came with the axles. I'm going to go on and run it down with the impact, if it will. Now I'm going to lock this up and torque it to spec. And now the suck part is done, other than putting the shock bolt back in. Now we can get to the fun. So with how I'm going to do this, I think I'm just going to pull the caliper mount bolts and see if I can just slide the whole caliper and the mount off in one go. I think I can, because I'm not going to be reusing any of this. But I'm going to tie it up out of the way and leave the... actually, I'm not. I'm just going to let it dangle because I'm replacing all the lines too. But I'm going to wait until everything else is mounted to actually unhook the caliper and everything, so I don't make such a mess with brake fluid everywhere. But yeah, we'll go on and pull the caliper, and then we can do a little size comparison with our rotors. Got our caliper complete, unbolted, out of the way. Just took the 2 mount bolts out, and now the rotor's ready to slide off. And a size comparison. Look at the difference between these things. Yeah, that should help with the stopping power, I'd say. So let's go on and get this rotor slid on there, which I did get the coated rotors. I really like this coating that's on them. Keeps them looking nice for a really long time. I've had a couple different trucks on the road with this coating on them, and rotors still look good. Basically look like I just put them on, other than where the pads are riding after 30,000-40,000 miles. So no rust on the rotor hat, nothing to really look tacky or bad behind the wheel. And if you're running a big open wheel like that, which those are only 18s, but anything being open like that, rusty rotors and rusty brake parts and all that stuff hanging out behind there just doesn't look good. So anyways, let's see what it looks like. Oh yeah, much better, mucho bigger. So now we got to get our big boy 4-piston calipers over here, and we'll kind of sit them up in place and see how they're going to look. So here's how they're going to sit. It will need roughly an 1/8-inch spacer between this surface and the surface of the knuckle. So I've got to find a washer or something that will fit these bolts. Hopefully I got something laying around here. Otherwise, I'm dead in the water and I'll have to go hardware shopping tomorrow. Well, I lucked out. I've got a whole box of 3/16 stainless, 1/2-inch diameter, 1/2-inch ID, stainless shim washers. They are right at a 1/16 of an inch thick. We're needing an 1/8 inch, so I'm going to run a stack of 2 on each bolt. That'll work out real nice. So let's see if we can get this caliper mounted. Now, caliper mounting bolts get torqued to 120 foot-pounds, so we'll go on and do that. Look at the size of these things. That is just perfect. So the reasoning for the washers back here, the original calipers floated on the bracket, right? They have 2 pistons behind the rotor, right? These have 4 pistons, 2 pistons in front, 2 pistons in back. So the caliper is now stationary. It doesn't move anymore, just the pistons move. So you've got no worries about the caliper slides locking up or something like that. But yeah, so you need to center the rotor in between the caliper. So you want to make sure that this line is as close to center as you can get it. And that is roughly 1/8 of an inch. At least that's what we're going to run. That's going to give you the best pad life and the best braking performance. So, anywho, now all we have to do on this side is change out our brake line, which I've got new ones here. So I got to figure out which one is which. Like I said, all this stuff's been sitting in the front seat of this truck for over 2 years now, and just waiting on me to get around to it. So yeah, I'm gonna figure out which hose is which, and I'll go on and bolt it up to the caliper side. Now be sure these are marked by part number if the sticker's still on them, but you just want the bleeder screw at the top on each side. And yeah, let's get these hoses on. Well, there we have it. One side is completely done. Got the new brake line all hooked up, ran down. So yeah, I really like that setup. So I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side, but I'm not going to bore you with it. I'll get it done up over there, and then bleed the brakes to get everything situated that way. You all know how to bleed brakes. I'm not going to bore you with it, but I'll bring you back for the finished product. Well, I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. It looks really nice. I'm gonna say now the front brakes are probably a touch bigger than the rears, whereas before they were actually smaller because the 14-bolt H2 brakes are huge. It's a 3/4 ton rear end, 1 ton, somewhere in there. And the brakes on it were quite a bit bigger than the stock half-ton Tahoe brakes. But now I think we'll have much better braking. But it is now 2:30 in the morning, and I still need to bleed the brakes on this thing. But that's going to wait till tomorrow. So I'll bring y'all back out here tomorrow and get the brakes bled on it, and we'll take it for a test drive and see how much of a performance gain we get. But keep in mind, I've already got Hydro Boost brakes on this thing too, so yeah, it should stop on a dime and give us 9 cents change back, which will be nice considering this rig with the Cummins, the 80E in it, and everything else that's done to it scales around 7,400 pounds. So it's not light, but getting it to stop a little quicker will be nice. But anyways, see you in a bit. Well, another day. Just got done bleeding the brakes, and haven't driven it yet. I did pump the calipers up and everything, topped the fluid off. I also just pulled the serpentine belt off and cleaned all the pulleys and scrubbed the belt really well because it was squealing like crazy. It's probably gonna squeal more because it's wet, but hopefully that'll go away pretty quick. But yeah, I went back this thing out of the shop and take it for a drive, see how it does. Well, so far, definitely a lot stronger brake feel on the front. I got to be careful with it because it is raining right now and the roads are slick. But done a couple medium 50 to 10 stops, not to, you know, keeping the brakes from locking up on the wet pavement. But yeah, it definitely sucks the front end down, and you can feel the braking difference for sure. So yeah, so far I'm pretty happy with it. Big improvement for sure. Rotors 112, calipers 87. We'll check the other side. Rotors about 110, calipers 89. Not bad, not bad at all. Well, that's gonna wrap this up. Overall, huge improvement in braking. The factory front brakes on that thing were, well, not meant for the kind of weight it was pushing, let alone the tires and everything else that's on it. But yeah, big upgrade and relatively inexpensive, if I remember correctly. I think I gave around $100 a piece for the calipers and like 40 bucks a piece for the rotors, something like that. But then that was a couple of years ago, so prices may have gone up. I will put part numbers and links to everything I used in the description of the video, so if you want to give it a shot, you can. From my understanding, all NBS Silverados, Tahoes, Suburbans, things like that, can use this same brake setup. But yeah, got it back in, out of the weather. And I'm now gonna have to clean all this mess up so it can have a permanent parking spot. But as of right now, the Tahoe is back on daily driver status. So it's raining. I'm tired. It's been a long couple days. I'm gonna call it. So yeah, if you got any comments, complaints, questions, anything like that, drop them in the comment section below. I try to answer them as quick as I can. If you want to support the channel, there's a PayPal account set up. The link to that is in the description of the video as well. We've got SuperThanks enabled. You can go that route too. Yeah, if you would, hit that like button. It helps us out quite a bit, and it doesn't cost you anything. That said, if you haven't already, please subscribe. We appreciate you watching.